chapter 4, you were asked to, right here, I had you do one sentence of transliterations, right? Number 2 in section A, number 2 in section B. So let's see, are there any questions about those? I think this is probably the last time we will do any transliterations. Questions here? Yeah. Oh, I have one in the back. Yes.
When transliterating from Hebrew to English, it was a little bit difficult for me to still tell the difference between the comments and the comments to.
Mm-hmm.
I looked for the signs, like on the last one, the last word is easier to tell because it has the methag marking that it's a long vowel, and so it can't be the O. But on the other ones, I was just wondering if there's an easy way to tell.
When you say the last one, you mean this one right here?
This word, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, actually, believe it or not, that is not a long A. So we'll go through that in just a moment. Let's work through one or two of these and see if we can come to some clarity on this matter. Let's just remind ourselves about what we're dealing with here. Whenever we see the ambiguous symbol, like what we have here on the first one of number 2, I have a kametz or a kametz ketuf, and it's followed by a shiva symbol, right? So under normal circumstances, oops, that went over a little bit too far. Under normal circumstances, I've got the answer to my question about whether to vocalize the shiva by looking to the right. But the symbol's ambiguous, so what do I have to do? Look where? Look to the left. Okay, so I want to look to the left of the kametz. And I'm looking for the presence of a methag to help me know whether this is a kametz or a kametz ketuf. Kametz is, remember we're going to abbreviate the kametz as a Q. Kametz ketuf is a QH. The kametz, is that the long A or the short O?
Long A.
It's a long A. It's ah, right? Kametz ketuf is a short O. That's O, right? So the pivotal answer to the question, is there a methag, in this circumstance where I have this shiva following a kametz or a kametz ketuf, is whether there's a methag or not. If the answer is no, the O should remind me that what I'm looking at is a kametz ketuf. Okay. All right. So is there a methag here? No. So this is a, yes, it is a kametz ketuf. It is a short O, right? Kametz ketuf. If it's a short O, then the shiva is silent. And so I need to transliterate it as such, right? G for the gimel. It's a begad kafat letter. There's a dot, so I don't put a line here. And then I need to use the O, so go. The pei that I see here is a begad kafat letter, but there's no dot, so it's plus line, right? Then I've got the resh, which is an R, the kirik yod, which is the I and the party hat, and then the tav, which is a begad kafat letter. Minus dot means plus line. So gof read, right? So that's another thing that should tell you, perhaps, that you're, maybe dealing. Well, actually, you don't really know this from the Hebrew side, but from the English side, the pei followed by an R, right? The P followed by an R is a sequence of 2 consonants and no vowel sound between them. That means that you're going to have a silent shiva under the pei in your Hebrew, right? There should be a silent shiva there. All right, let's take a look at the second word, okay? Here I have another situation where I've got the ambiguous sequence. A kametz symbol followed by a shiva symbol. That's the only time when this is really ambiguous. And so, again, what I have to look for is right before the commets, or excuse me, right after the commets. Is there a metheg or not? Is there?
No.
No. Then that means that this is a what? Kametz ketuf. If it's a kametz ketuf, is it long or short? Short. If it's short, the shava is silent. Okay? So that settles it pretty easily for me. So this is hok, hok, hok. Okay? Now look at this symbol here. Let me go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. Is that one followed by a shava symbol? No. Then the metheg is not going to help me at all, right? I don't depend on the metheg being present or absent to decide whether or not that's a kametz or a kametz ketuf. What's the question I have to ask myself at this point? Is this symbol in what kind of a syllable? Not just open or closed. I need to remember cuss. Is it in a closed and unaccented syllable? If it's in a cuss syllable, a closed unaccented syllable, then it's got to be what?
Short.
It's got to be short, because the rule for cuss is closed unaccented syllables require a short vowel. So if that symbol's in a cuss, closed unaccented syllable, then it has to be something short, and the only short vowel that could represent is a kametz ketuf, right? It's got to be the short O. So look at this. Is this a closed unaccented syllable?
No.
No. The mem has a vowel under it, right? The tav has a vowel after it, so the tav is not closing the syllable, is it? Tav has its own vowel to create its own syllable. So if I were dividing, I'd divide here, and I've got an open syllable, right? Ma is open. That's not a cuss syllable. So if it's not in a cuss syllable, it's always what? It's always a kametz, okay? It's always a kametz unless it's in a cuss syllable, okay? So this is hok, and now along A. Ma, hok, ma, tho, hok, ma, tho. Okay, by the way, if I were dividing, I'd have to divide here, right? Hok, divide, ma, so that's closed, open, open. Hok, ma, tho. Okay, now take a look at this next one here. We have a yod with a kametz symbol or kametz ketuf followed by that shava. That's the ambiguous thing. And what do I need to know? Is there a metheg accompanying this kametz or kametz ketuf? Is there? Nope. That means that this is it's an O, so it's kametz ketuf, right? Remember, no means O. No means O. No metheg, it's an O, short O. That means the shava is silent. Good. And where would I divide this?
To the left.
To the left. Good. So it's yolk, right? Yolk. Now look at this one. There's no shava following that symbol, so I don't ask myself about methegs. I just ask myself, is it in a cuss syllable? Is this closed? The second syllable? Yes. Is it unaccented? No. The stress is always on which syllable? The final, unless you have an accent mark telling you somewhere else. So this is closed, but it's accented. It's tonic and closed. So it's not a cuss syllable, so it must be what? It must be a kametz, right? Because it's only a kametz ketuf if it's in a cuss syllable. So how will I pronounce this? Yolk shan. Yolk shan. Yolk shan. All right? So, are there any other ones besides the last one that you want to look at, talk about, work through? Yes, Tank.
So in the first section, section A,
So up here where we're going from English into Hebrew.
on the last word for transliteration,
Okay, which is this one here.
yes, I'm having a hard time understanding why it's not transliterated into a woolen ball.
Ah, which one? The first O?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, here's why. You see you've got an O here and there's nothing above it, right? In order for me to transliterate something as a holum vav, it's got to be the O with the party hat. Okay, now the party hat has the point at the top. Okay, so that equals a holum vav. The O with the little cup symbol, right? That is the compound shava. Okay, so anytime I have this, it's going to be a vowel symbol plus a shava together forming a composite sign, a compound. So an A with this symbol is equal to this. An O with this symbol is a kametz ketuf with the shava. An E with that symbol is a segol with a shava symbol right beside it. So that's why this is not a kametz, a holum vav, okay? Because it's a compound shava. So be careful. Don't get that symbol mixed up with this one. Okay. This, by the way, is very similar to this last one right here. So shall we talk about that one?
Yes.
Okay, because you see the metheg right here with that kametz or kametz ketuf symbol, and your mind says, bam, that's a long A, right? But my answer key has a short O here for the transliteration. Okay, so here's the first thing. What is it that comes after this kametz symbol? It's a compound shava. Now what I'm telling you is the presence of a metheg makes the difference only when I have this sequence. Kametz, kametz ketuf symbol followed by a normal looking shava. This is not a normal looking shava. It is a compound shava. When it's a compound shava, I cannot use this metheg or no metheg issue to tell whether it's a long A or a short O. Okay, can't do it. The issue here is simply that what we learned about metheg is that it frequently precedes a compound shava, right? That's the only reason it's there. To put it another way, yeah, you guys remember that, right? This is the metheg number 3 paragraph under the discussion of metheg. Compound shavas frequently precede methegs frequently precede a compound shava. What was our example here? He gave us Kohanim, right? And, Yaakov was the other one. Let's take a look at Yaakov, for example. Yaakov. This was on page 51. Okay? So what we saw was that there's a compound shava under the ayin, and the metheg is written here with the pathak, right? Does the function of that metheg have anything to do with disambiguating what this vowel is right here that it's next to? No, because that vowel is not ambiguous anyway, right? So that metheg is there just because methegs frequently go before compound shavas. Okay? And that's the same here. This metheg here is not there to disambiguate what the kametz symbol is doing. It's just there because the compound shava is coming after it. Okay? So I can't use it. So pretend like it's not there. It's just a symbol like this. So I'm not going to use metheg's presence or absence. I'm just going to ask myself, is this a cuss syllable? And what's the answer to that? Hey gets a vowel under it, right? Ayin has vowel pointing under it. It's a compound shava, which means that it's going to piggyback on the next consonant and its full vowel. If I were going to divide my syllable, right, I always divide to the right of a compound shava, don't I? Because a compound shava is a type of vocal shava, And I never divide to the left of a vocal shava, do I? Always divide to the right. So what does that mean? It means that this is in an open syllable, right? And so I've got an open syllable. But where's my accent? It's way over here, right? You guys see that? Accent's way over here. Metheg is not an accent mark, by the way. And so Hebrew would have a tendency to reduce this to a vocal shava, right? That's our Ups Ras vocal shava. But we're not going to allow it to happen over here. What this ends up being is a situation very much like when you have we've talked about your shava fights, right? Where you're adding like a bet preposition, and let's say you've got a compound shava right after it. What happens? We shoot out both eyes, right? And what do we replace it with? You replace it with the corresponding short vowel, which in this case is that's a kametz ketuf, right? So the corresponding short vowel is a kametz ketuf. So that's the situation here, is I have a kametz ketuf here, okay? That's a kametz ketuf. And in the open syllable, the tendency would be to reduce it, and the metheg really is here to just tell us to pronounce it as a full short vowel. So anytime I have a symbol that looks very much like the thing that comes after it, but it's a compound shava, we're going to treat these both as kametz ketuf symbols, okay? And when I have this, right, that matches. When I have the segol here, we have a matching segol. So this is a very rare situation, but that is not a long A here, okay? So this is really ho amad, okay? So we're not going to have to transliterate these things anymore beyond this chapter, but I did want to walk through that with you because it's anomalous. It's very different from what we're normally going to see. All right. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
I have two questions. So for above, when we transliterated Mohamad into Hebrew,
Yes.
number two, is it okay if I put the method two on the first?
Yes, that would be entirely okay. Yeah. Did I put it in my answer key or did I leave it off?
You have to.
Yeah. For me, just to tell you guys, I am not a stickler on the method being there when you're writing Hebrew words, unless it's the situation where you have a shava and you have the kamet symbol before it. Then the method is really a disambiguating sign, and you need to have it to know which is which, right? So that's the only place where I'm a bit of a stickler on the method. All right. So your other question?
So is that with the first syllable, is that the exception to the open, the cap, what was accent, goes unaccented syllables?
Yes.
Open unaccented syllables, sorry, need a long vowel.
Right. It's the issue is it's really not. Let me see here. Old preacher sermons are long, right?
Yes.
Old preacher sermons are long. So the open pretonic syllables, I think, what you're thinking of?
Yes.
Open pretonic syllables. Yeah, they require a long, and here, since the compound shava, where'd it go? Since the compound shava is not being treated as a real vowel, here's a situation where we have a tonic syllable and we have an open pretonic syllable. It should be long, but it's short because it's matching this compound shava here. Yep. What's really happening, we're going to learn this when we get way into chapter 31, okay? What we wanted to do is Hebrew wanted to put this for that, okay? It was supposed to be a kametz ketuf with a silent shava. And this guttural starts playing games with the shava and converts the shava to a vocal shiva, to a compound shiva. And so this is the norm, but that silent shiva becomes a compound shiva. So under normal circumstances, this would have been easily identifiable for what it is, but when it took a compound shiva there, then that makes it hard for you because you don't know this word, right? If you had already taken the lessons up to 31, you'd know that this prefix is always ho. Yeah.
The second one is a 4 or 8.
Where? I'm sorry.
Compound
This symbol right here?
Yes.
Yeah. See, that can only be one thing, right? Compound shivas are of only 3 sorts. Right over here. I wrote these down, right? These are your compound shivas. So each of these compound shivas has a vowel associated with it, a vowel point, segol, kametz, ketuf, or pathat. Okay? So I wouldn't ask you to label that symbol as a kametz or a kametz ketuf because it's neither. It is a compound shiva that happens to have a kametz ketuf element as part of it. Okay? Excuse me. All right. Any other questions about your transliteration homework?
Well, on section C, sir, when it was talking about translating from Hebrew to English, there were just some words I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So I just
Which words did you not know? What were these the new vocabulary words for chapter 4? On page 53, you're given some new vocabulary words to memorize. So maybe they're from that. You see on page 53, we've got new words.
Well, like on number 1, it's the he drove for the vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
but on the answer key is he lived, and so I'm like, I'm kind of confused.
Oh, yeah. Yashav can mean to dwell or to live, right? Like those are synonyms in English. So to live, dwell, or sit, those are all possible ways to translate this. So yeah, if you have situations where your answer doesn't match my answer key, by all means, this is the time to ask. So that's a good question, right? Because sometimes I will know a meaning of a word, and in my head, I don't remember that Ross has given you just a narrow range of meanings, and I might use a meaning that I know that you don't. So, yeah.
Sir, like if you look at number 3 at the beginning,
Mhm.
when I read that, it says Nathan.
Well, that is the verb nathan, which means he gave. Okay? Now, the name Nathan is derived from this root. Okay? But he hasn't given you Nathan as a vocab word, so I wouldn't worry about trying to translate it as Nathan. It's the verb here, nathan, he gave, put or set. And the subject comes after the verb, which is quite frequent in Hebrew. So we have to translate this as God gave, right? God gave. If you translate Nathan as Nathan, then you don't have a verb, right? There's no verbs in this sentence if Nathan's not the verb, right? So then what are you going to do with that? You might add is, right? You can do that if there's no verb, then you have to supply is or are, but we wouldn't want to translate this as Nathan as God, right? Because he's not,
No, I mean, I
right?
understand that,
Yeah, so Nathan, God, peace, to Adam, or to man, or mankind, right? If there's no verb here, then you want to ask yourself, is it the case possibly that one of these is really a verb and not a name? And since Nathan is a new vocabulary word, you might expect him to use it in the exercise, right? So if that's the verb, then it's God gave. God gave shalom. God gave peace. And the le is telling you who he gave peace to, right? Excuse me. Are there any other questions or specific questions about the translation part?
Yeah, I did get a little confused on number 3. So I think that's he gave, but then the answer key said God gave. Or I don't know. I think I was like just a little, because I know that's Elohim, so it kind of reminded me of Spanish where like the words are kind of like backwards.
Right.
So is that what's going on here?
Yes. So Nathan is, and this is like Spanish. Nathan can be translated as he gave, right? And you will add the pronoun in English, he, even though there's not technically a pronoun with this verb, right? It's the verb ending, which tells you that that's he gave instead of something like she gave or I gave, all right? When we learn she gave, it'll be nathana. We'll add an ah ending. If it's I gave, they gave would be nathanu, the u ending. In other words, you can embed who the subject is by changing the ending, okay? But if you have an explicit noun that is the subject, then don't use the pronoun. Use the explicit noun as the subject. And so don't try to add he if you have an explicit subject.
Okay.
So don't say God he gave, right? It's just God gave at that point. Yes?
So then the verb ending would only be signified, the he gave would only be signifying that it's like in the third person, not like that it's actually he gave.
Right, yeah. So the ending is marking that the subject is a third person entity that's
So there's
masculine.
no literal pronoun attached.
Right, exactly. So if there ain't a subject noun, then you have to use the pronoun he for it. Okay, and that's the case in number 4, right? I have Yashav Sham. There is no explicit subject noun, so I have to translate this as he sat or dwelled or lived. He sat there, right? All right, good. Nathan Av, right? There's the word Av gave. What does Av mean? Father. So this is going to be translated as a father gave, right? You know, in the word order, you might be tempted to translate this as he gave a father, right? Where the father is the recipient. But you need a lamed preposition to mark the recipient, and that doesn't come until later. So the recipient of the giving is going to be Bain over here, Levain. So that means I need to take Av as the subject. A father gave to the son, or to a son. And then this is what he gave, is wisdom. Okay. So don't forget that the meaning of the lamed is going to help you here. Okay. All right. Other questions about the translations here? We all good? Your last chance. The dreadful swallow. All right.
Well, I do have one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm still kind of not understanding how, because like for the answer key for number 5, the
Mhm.
last one, the whole thing is a father gave wisdom to a son, and
Mhm.
how are we, where again are we drawing those A's from?
In the next chapter, we're going to learn the article in Hebrew is the word ha attached to a word. So there's an article that we're going to use to say the something. So since we don't have an article on these, you're going to translate them as a whatever, okay? Unless it's a situation like the word Adam over here, okay? So you see le Adam. If that means Adam, proper noun, then I wouldn't say to a Adam or an Adam, right? I would just say to Adam. But if Adam here just means man or mankind, here in the case, let's say I do man, then I could translate that as to a man or simply to man, meaning to humanity. All right. If I had the article on it, then I would want to go with the man, but we don't know that yet. All right. So that's a very understandable question to raise. Okay, let's move on to the next chapter then. We're going to focus on some dots. Any of you like the candy called dots? My kids love those. I'm not too crazy about them. But there's a lot of dots in this next chapter.